1 second. Here's you can run.
Good.
Yep.
You're good there?
Yep.
You're good there? All right, let's call to order the Board of Library Trustees Committee of the whole meeting for Monday, December 5th, 2022. Your roll call, please.
Trustee Burrell? Here. Trustee Gowan? Here. Trustee Meadow is absent. Trustee Rule? Here. Trustee Samari is
She's
here.
gonna be,
Okay, trustee Samari is currently not here. Trustee Suplet
Here.
and President Zick.
here. Okay, for the first time, guys, we're gonna get up to the pledge of allegiance.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
Right back here. Pledge allegiance
To the
flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll get better at that as we move along. All right, is there any public comment? See none, so we will go on to item 1, revisions to policy 5.003 circulation.
Okay, so what I'm proposing tonight is some revisions to our circulation policy. Most of these are, well, some of them are updates just based on procedural changes within the library, while others are increasing the limits. So on page 1 of the policy, so after the memo, it's the third point down, looking at increasing the number of items that a reciprocal borrower can have from 20 items to 40 items. Our system currently counts up to 40 items, so it's kind of difficult to enforce that 20. Plus, only a few customers really exceed that 20 count limit. We do feel that for those that do want to utilize our library in a way that would exceed that 20 item count, we think it would be a good move to make it to bump that to 40.
One question I had about that, we should about hours. Is there any difference in returning rates or anything between them and?
No, I think the loan rules are the same for reciprocal borrowers. I'm pretty sure.
But everything's just back in a timely manner, do that. And
Yeah, I mean, I can see if we have any stats on tracking that, like reciprocal borrowers versus our own borrowers
Right.
as far as return rates. For when I bring this back to the board. You want to see if we can-
I mean, it's just a thought because, you know, I mean, think about it. If our people are, your people here are like 0.1% of them, you know, are not returning it, but then also we find out here it's like 25% of books aren't being returned. And now we're just increasing that to 40. We're just increasing the possibility. Of actually thinking.
Sure. Yeah,
Just something to think about.
I'll see if we have that data. I don't know if we can break down to that point, but I'll find out. But RVs do only make up, I think, 5.5% of all of our
Yeah,
checkouts,
it's
so
not huge.
it's a small amount.
So I'm probably barking at the room. John.
What's a reciprocal borrower?
Oh, I'm sorry. They're non-Arlington Heights cardholders, so they're cardholders of other libraries, and we have reciprocal agreements with all the libraries. So our residents can go to other libraries and utilize them, and then they can come here and utilize our services.
I mean, 20 items.
That's
seems
very
like a
generous.
lot.
That's very generous.
Yeah, Arlington residents or Arlington Heights cardholders can take out up to 100. So
Was that what that was that reference that's sitting there? Oh, yeah.
our
Our cardholders can take out to hundreds.
Right.
And that's always been like that.
No, it's changed over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone up and down. But it does add up, you know, and sometimes when people take out a lot of kids items, you know, kids items can add up quickly.
Right.
Thin books, and you know, they might have a bunch out and have just returned some, so there's some
Right.
overlap there. So having that high limit really helps with logistics of that.
I got a lot of other stuff. But I think there's a few questions.
I did, yeah. So somewhat related, I was just curious as far as, if we keep metrics on, since we went fine free, that if there's any difference if we see of like, cost or lost books or how that is measured.
Yeah, actually, I asked our circulation manager to bring it, to start preparing that information, because what I want to do is do an annual report back to you
Yeah.
guys about that specifically, since we've gone fine free, how has that impacted the collection? How has that impacted length of the loans and return limits and stuff like that? So she's working on that. We'll bring that to an upcoming meeting.
Great, thanks.
Quick question about reciprocal borrowers. Is that just within the state or is it?
Yeah, so.
Okay, okay.
Only within the rail system?
No, I believe it's all of Illinois. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Any other questions or just keep on going?
Well,
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, we're gonna stay on this subject? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Just keep going. Just keep going.
Okay, then on page 2 of the policy, we had a couple other changes. So for renewals, as you probably, most of you probably recall, we enacted the automatic renewal system, I think it was about a year ago or so. In that, we have it automatically renewed twice for people. What we'd like to do is increase that to 4 times, because what we're seeing is we do it twice and then people call or they, renew online anyway. As long as the item does not have a hold on it, the automatic renewal system will automatically renew it. So what we'd like to do is move that from 2 automatic renewals to 4 automatic renewals. Then down in part B, number 2, those are really just some name changes and how we reference the collection. Down to the popular collection. Then on page 3, there is a couple things. Point 3 up at the top there, that's just some grammar changes. Number 5 and 6, those are current procedure that we wanted to include in the policy because that's how we're handling returns after 60 days. Or within 60 days of the original due date, we'll remove the charges in the block if they return the items. And then with the items, it's pretty much the same thing in point number 6. But if the item is not returned, both the replacement cost and the material recovery fee apply. So that was not explicitly stated in our policy, so we want to include that in this practice. Then in section B, number 2, just pointing out that material replacements are not accepted. We do have people, say, can I buy this book on Amazon? And we don't accept those. So that we want to make explicit in the policy.
so somebody might try to, they lost the book. They might try to go and get that exact same book and just kind of donate it back to the library.
Right. As a replacement. But there's a number of reasons why we don't do that. For one, we evaluate if the book is still relevant in the collection. We look, there's different bindings for books, so we want to make sure that we get the one that's specific to the library binding or hardcover, softcover, whatever it was in there. So there's a number of factors that go into it that our collection team takes into account. So we don't accept those.
So did I interrupt somebody say something? I'm sorry.
And then the last page is just a change in the pronoun. Instead of saying he or she, we're saying they.
John,
Okay, so we're having the conversation about the loan quantity. And, to myself and others, it seemed like really big numbers. But then again, I've never really considered it before, and you certainly have. I cannot see allowing a card holder to take out 100 items. But just speak to me. I mean, because now that we're fine free, 100 items today, 100 items tomorrow,
100 items total on the record.
total on the record.
Right.
Okay, so I can't, it can only, yeah, okay. And well, you're comfortable with that, okay. And then reciprocal borrower, you explained. What's a developing collection?
So these are collections that are newer collections or collections that are specific to our library or that we want to keep in our library. So we don't loan those out to card holders outside of our own library.
Okay, thank you.
So an example of that might be like when Blu-rays first came out, we weren't loaning Blu-rays outside of Arlington.
Card holders, right. And then with renewals, why 4? I mean, why not 3? I'm just asking.
Good question. Dana, I don't know if you have anything to.
I just came because we were already getting those calls, and it's only 2 weeks, so they're like, newer books. So if they were getting calls anyway, so they should probably go back for a fire association.
Okay.
So this would really benefit having the staff manually to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it saves on time, but
Okay.
it's just, what has been the thing that's trying to how long people do different.
And With the, the fact that if there's a hold on an item, it won't
Right.
automatically renew.
Right,
There's really not much of a downside with the exception of it not being on our
Right.
shelf, but at the same time, I think we'd rather have someone that's actively using it and, then it would increment up a certain number as well.
and then my last question is, why are we going from 45 to 60?
What was that?
Page 3, numbers 5 and 6. Unreturned items are considered lost.
No, we're not going from 45 to 60. We're saying if an item remains overdue for 45 days or more, the library can turn over the account to a material recovery agency. Is that?
That was my next question. Have you been using material recovery agencies?
Yeah.
Does that complicate your life or does it actually help?
It's, I don't want to say it complicates our life, but it does help to, with some of the recovery of items that either go missing or the funds to help cover it.
Does it pay for itself? I mean,
There's
are
been some-
the items that are being recovered of such value that it's offsetting the cost of a recovery agency?
I'd like Shannon to be here for that conversation. Maybe we
Which is
can extend
fine.
that at the board.
Well,
meeting.
which is fine, because then I'll tell you anecdotally for hospitals, you try to recover money and you send it to an agency, you're gonna end up in the newspaper.
Oh, okay.
And of course, it's healthcare, it's not a book. But it has turned out to be a bigger problem than it's solved. From my narrow experience.
Yeah, we discussed, Shannon, the circulation manager, and I discussed that a couple of years ago. We talked about, is it worth it? And we decided at that time that we would continue with it. But it's definitely something we can.
Because essence, they only get paid on commission.
Right, well, I think we pay them a service fee either way. And then we pass that along to the customer either way, whether they, it
Mhm.
just gets tacked down to their account.
Mhm.
So it is, there's cost involved.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, no,
Sure.
okay.
Oh, no, go.
Well, in just in this discussion, I'm thinking also, hypothetically, if my family were in any situation. But we're not, I'm just saying, might have come close, so I'm just trying to understand, when calls are made, are people, are customers informed, hey, might be getting a call from a recovery agency, just as a heads up, or are people, is that they get notified? I know it's in the policy, but I don't know, unlike.
It's in the policy, it's in the, I believe it's in the written notice, which
Yeah.
gets mailed out
Okay,
before it goes
so they-
to that. Yeah, so it's not just a phone call that you would receive before you get to
Yeah, I
that.
haven't gotten it.
There's a printed notice that goes.
Thank you.
There's emails, a series of emails that go out, right?
Right,
Because we lost a book one time, and I didn't realize until I started getting the emails. And I was like, oh, dang, where is it? Found it underneath my dog's bed eventually, but yeah, so I thought there's a whole bunch of communication.
there is. And then, we think that if we're just sending via email or just sending phone calls, that, there's an opportunity that they may not be getting it, it's going to spam, or opportunity for failure there. So we then mail something to the address on file before it goes to collection. So
And I feel like recently I've read some books with a lot of pages and hadn't quite finished them. And I really appreciated when they were automatically renewed. So I think that's super helpful. And I use the link library way to get books from other libraries, which I find that maybe not as many cardholders know about, because it's a really great way to get books that are have long hold lines here. And some libraries just seem to have books, but I also appreciate the fact that we do keep some stuff just for us, because I notice that certain libraries also, keep, they tend to be more like hot books.
Yeah.
And so for maybe a year or whatever it is, they're keeping them just for local distribution only. And I think that's wise as well. But I do appreciate that. And the 100 books, little kids and teachers, 100 books comes pretty quick. So that's what it is.
Features that one.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, I can imagine checking out, so everyone can read along or something, there's 20 books, I don't know, if we even have 20 books, copies of the same book, but
There's a lot of book collections.
yeah.
Jenny, you have something?
Yeah, so I had a question around the LinkedIn renewal limits. So it's the kind of third section on the cover page. Talking about the Lincoln Libraries are evaluating increase or removing that language. I didn't see that reflected in the
Oh,
policy. I think
yeah.
it would be on the second page. Yeah, under section C, it says eligible for one renewal. And maybe I'm just misunderstanding it, but
No, you're right. We did miss that. Eligible for one renewal under renewals, Lincoln items. Yeah, we'll have to look back at the original.
Okay.
We'll
thank you.
highlight that. For you, before doing it.
Any other questions? Anything else on
Nope.
that? Okay. All right, good stuff. All right, let's move on to item 2, policy 7.007, use of flags and library property discussion. Okay, this is a continuation of what we talked about the last cow. And I took the notes that from what everybody had mentioned, and I threw it into something, and actually Mike has come up with something that might actually even be better, that he's going to show here in a second here. But what I wanted to kind of look at is what I added to this, again, based on our discussion the other day, on that second page in red, where it really outlines the trustees' responsibilities regarding this. And the initial proposal by the trustee to be done at a committee of the whole, which I like, so we get it in there, so we make sure that we get it in there and it's talked about, so we can get it all figured out before the next meeting. Then, and I hope I didn't confuse the thing here, but then I said at the time the trustee will provide documentation at point number 1 above. I was getting lazy. I hope that didn't want to have a whole bunch of words in there, so hopefully that makes sense onto the, whether the United States or Illinois has actually had a statute or proclamation. Okay, you have to bring in documentation of that. Then documentation, photo of existing flag. So we actually have that, and so we know what flag that we're pointing towards. And when we ask, if we approve it, then when we ask staff, they know exactly what it is that they're going to look for. And then the last one was filled out form, and I just came up with this really basic form. It just basically says, okay, put down what the statute of proclamation is. The representative flag that goes to that other point, provided documentation, and then which library mission or values this represents. Now, like I said, Mike came up with something actually even better to do that. Did you mind pulling that up?
So my thought was, in kind of going along with what Greg was looking to do here, creating a form that would ask those questions that are explicitly stated in the policy. So as a trustee wanted to submit this, it would really, they'd have to say yes or no if it fulfills each of those requirements. And then to provide documentation of the US or state of Illinois recognizing the flag or cause through statute or proclamation. This one's a text box, but we can make this file upload, so you could attach something, and then an image of the flag to be considered. So there's no confusion as to which flag we'd be looking to approve. So this is kind of taking the process and procedure and the policy and kind of sticking it all in one form. So maybe just reference this form in the policy to say, a form must be submitted in advance or something.
Where would a form like this live?
Well, this would be on our Microsoft 360 account, and it would then, when it's submitted, it would email the board president or Steve's or however you wanted to do it.
And then would this also record who is submitting it as part of that?
Yeah,
Is it
we
built
could,
in?
because if what we would do is we would require the trustee to be logged in. So this is not available to anyone outside of this group. So you would log in, and then when you submit this, it would state that
this
Jen,
is-
you're all city office, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you. Is there a way we could add what date we would like it flown?
Oh, yeah,
So
that's
that
a
we
good idea.
have like a, and I propose we have a 60-day, if possible, advance or minimum. And I mean, if we come back and we say we could do it, we could always, I guess, have an amendment and say, oh, can we do it 30 days, but at least like a,
Can we start with 30? Because the cow, if we're doing it the cow, and I mean, within 2 weeks, we're at the board meeting. That should have given us enough time. It's a month out.
I mean, to fly, I guess I'm thinking like for the staff to get the flag, to be able to do all that. I just meant that it was, the initial request is given enough time to be able to leave room for that is all I was.
So if, let's say it was in August, whatever it was, they want to fly something in August. So what it would be, if it's 30 days, then we would go with the June, would have to be introduced in by the minimum by the June cow. We vote on it in the June board meeting, and now you've essentially got that rest of that month to be able to get it to be able to get it up. Is that kind of where you're
It's
going?
kind of where I was just looking for a blanket. I guess I don't mind 30, I just don't want us to end up in a crunch time where we're like speeding things and like, oh, okay, let's just do this. So I was kind of getting a buffer. That was what I was thinking 60.
Here's a question. So I'm just thinking of the flag that we did last year. 2 questions. One, do we have to do it every year? And we do have different board members every year, so I'm thinking we do. And then 2, but we have an election in April. And it's after the cow meeting. So that means if someone wanted something, I guess, to be
For June.
for June, they would have to propose it in March.
Well, they could propose it in January.
I understand that, but I'm just saying,
It would have
like,
to be the current board. So if you're not on the board at that point, like we have an election in April. And they want something in May, that they're
Well,
gonna
they-
wait for the following year for them to bring it up.
right, but if we voted as, per, hypothetically, this board voted on something at the. See, April's tricky because the cow meeting has a different board than or no, it's the same board. All right, so is it okay, though, that an April board approves something? And then a new board is elected and it's for June?
Absolutely. Is that what the sitting board, Jen?
Yeah.
We do it with the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's, it's like, June, with the Pride Month, There's gonna be an election in April. They're not gonna be seated until May. If we vote on it in April, it's still, that was the vote of the board at the time, so.
So, but 60 days then, our April 3rd board meeting, or our April 3rd cow meeting isn't exactly 60 days. So would you be comfortable with like 2 cows before, or would that have to be done in March? I mean, all of us need to think about that because
I just. put
March to
60. I
June
mean,
seems kind of far, or April to, whatever.
I mean, I feel like it's getting a little in the weeds with like, 53 days versus
Right.
60. I feel like it's just been established and I guess I base more on like, if you're gonna go the traditional 30 days, things are done in different tracks of 30 days, 60 days. I mean, 45, I guess I was just thinking enough time for staff. Like, what if the flag is
Right.
back ordered or something and we're not rushing?
Right, 2 weeks is not a ton of time to have staff. So I almost feel like the board meeting
Let's just like a
Yeah.
minimum, we need to be, it has to be, we have to give a minimum of 30 days.
Okay.
We have to, so that will, by our definition, it will have to be 2 months before that we would have to do that.
Correct.
Unless, just hypothetical, I just using June right now, just because of an example, it's probably, let's say, for some reason it didn't get voted on until the end of May, and we had to give 30 days. Well, we could still put it up in 30 days, it would just be at the end of June. So we just have to realize that something like that could potentially happen.
Sorry.
I agree with all, this makes sense to have some time to go in and procure whatever flag we might want, but in case of like the pride flag, let's say for whatever reason we didn't vote on it in time, I'm assuming you kept the one that we had this past year. So it's not like we have to go buy a new one. So in that case.
Yeah.
The vote could be sooner or like closer to June.
I think to the point, Sarah, I think you might have brought it up before. We can change it. We can vote to say, you know what, we'll, at this particular point for this junction, we will allow it to, we'll allow something.
Yeah.
But it's, I think what we're trying to put in there and, it's the best practice type of thing,
Absolutely.
more than anything. But, yeah,
I'm just thinking logistically, I agree that 60 days would be much better because we have 2 meeting cycles. And because if somebody submitted something after a board meeting, you know, we were talking about something and like, okay, I'm gonna submit this. Now, 30 days is up against, you know, if approved at that next meeting, that would be expected that that flag would go up, you know, shortly right after
Right.
that meeting. It doesn't give us a whole lot of time to get something. And, you know, the pride flag is an exception, I think, because we have one and they're much more common, but if there's something that we, you know, need to procure that, you know, Flags R Us doesn't have, you know, might be a little bit more difficult for us. So just something to think about. I know it's probably tough because we're not always thinking 2 months ahead and what those.
Well, we should be thinking of it at the beginning of the year.
Right.
Yeah, right.
You know, so, yeah.
So-
Our calendar, but then-
Right, because some months we don't have a cow meeting.
Right.
And so are we saying that we need to, a trustee needs to complete this form? We all get it. We discuss it at a cow meeting and then we take a vote at a meeting,
the next board.
At the next board meeting.
correct?
But keep in mind that cow meetings are the first Monday of the month. So if it's gonna be, say, at the beginning, like in June, you want
Right.
to put something up in June, you're gonna submit it a month before that. It has to get on that agenda, that cow agenda, right away,
Right,
you know?
right. So what I'm saying is, right, you have to submit it in order for it to be discussed at a cow and then voted on at the next meeting.
So it has to be in the April
Right.
for that in this scenario, correct?
Right.
So, yeah, that's why I'm thinking 45 or 60 would be.
Well, actually, really, March would be better because wait, we're talking about it at April, it has to be before the April cow, which is April 3rd, like that's super early.
So the
So,
April, well, all right, so
the trustee would have to submit a form basically in March for something for June 1st.
so they have to set the form for the April cow meeting, and
To
then we vote
discuss.
on it at the April board meeting. And then they have 45 days to put it up for June.
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah. I think, just the point which we all like want to do is just be intentional in our, what we want to do to make sure we, you know, cross our T's and dot our I's. So, I just think that time goes so fast and to be able to, it puts the onus back on the trustee that's doing this and saying like, get your ducks in a row. If you want this, then, you know, submit them all at the beginning of the year. And, you know, it could be like 3 months, 4 months in
Right.
advance. So that was all my point,
Yeah.
not to, you know, day by day. It's just, we have to, you know, again, it's not on a whim, like some sort of agenda or something. It's like, no, I plan, this is what I really want, you know, to see up there.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I like the idea of honestly thinking about it for a January or February meeting. I mean, I feel as though there are only a certain number, probably a handful, if that, of flags that we would really consider that would meet all our criteria.
Well, for them international heritage months that actually have flags.
Correct. Yeah, and are flown either in the state of Illinois or nationally.
Right.
So what I'm thinking here. If everybody's okay with what I put down here for 1 and 2, and then we fill that number 3 comes down to be to fill out this form. Excuse me, to fill out this form, however we need to word it, but then we also have something in here where we state something like. Filled out form and then put something in here to be submitted. A minimum of 30 days before. The first day. of flying the flag or something. We'll submit that.
That's in this situation. we're talking that we've got.
Because it's possible that we could have a committee of the whole meeting on the first or second day of the month. And if you want to fly that flag the next month,
Like this month.
it may not get on
Right.
that committee of the whole agenda. It may already be.
Well, but if you're saying if it gets on the committee of the whole, let's say in April, to be flown in May,
Right.
but that's not good. That should never, that. If we go that minimum 30 days, that should not ever happen. You should probably have at least a minimum of 5 weeks. If we're really going to that 30 days, because that third week is when we have the board meeting. And so now if you have to give it at least 30 days, typically these things are at the beginning of the month, right?
Mhm.
So you're gonna get that whole next month plus that one last week in that month, right when it was voted on.
So you figure out how much time you need, put it on that piece of paper that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's probably-
Yeah.
Okay. Just to clarify, what is the 30, is the 30 days before you want to see that flag fly?
Yes.
Yes.
So
So you're
Because
not,
we're just trying to give staff enough
Couldn't
time.
it-
you're not doing it in the last week.
couldn't it be form completed 2 months prior to month flag would be flown? Because that means the form for a March 1st month. It would have to be, the form has to be completed prior to the January cow. Or, you know,
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we're-
Actually,
it's really more complicated. We're,
I
yeah.
mean. I stick by my 60 days.
Yeah.
So I mean, like,
Well, the
it just,
60
I mean, it
days is
just
just
seems
what
like
you
we're
just said.
nuancing
Yeah.
like 5 weeks
So-
versus
well,
a day.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
60
how
days,
about,
2 months.
if everybody's okay
60 days.
with John's idea?
Yeah, figure it out.
Figure out what you think you feel comfortable with, come back in the board meeting and we're gonna talk about that. And I think the most likely the town will be all happy.
So, yeah, the form has to be submitted by X. What was the other thing that people had mentioned? that were missing?
The date should be flown, advance notice, require the signing on the form,
Yeah.
and then that it's submitted every year.
Can we put on that form too, even though I know it'll be a stamped time, but can we have the person say what day they're filling this out, just like.
Well, it's on the computer, it probably is timestamps with that.
Yeah,
Right, I
so-
know, it's just
I'll have it.
person knows when they're filling it. That's true.
All right, good. Anything else in there? Mike, are you clear on what?
Yes.
What we talked about?
Yes.
Clear as mud.
Okay. Yeah, I think I got it.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to, probably gonna be John's favorite thing, item 3,
Oh, I
data
actually-
and statistics. Oh,
All right, we have one more question.
Did we specify how long the flag is to be flown? Like, do we assume it's always 31
It is.
days, or do we?
I think that's in 7.007. It's for the month.
You know what, on the form, I could have a date range.
Okay, that's what I
Just,
think.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, are we good now? All right, item 3, data and statistics reporting.
Okay, so I wanted to bring you guys a kind of a refresh of their data and statistics reporting. As some of you probably remember, we refreshed this a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, something like that, to give you a better layout of the dashboard, to give you more concise and relevant information and make it a little bit easier to read, both for the board and the public. Since then, we kind of been talking internally about the data that we're providing. And in some of the conversations that we've had here with the board, we thought maybe there would be the benefit of having some other information. And so we wanted to bring another version to you for discussion. Most of the changes here are layout, but we are adding library cards and the meeting room and conference room usage. So we have been talking about that a little bit over the last couple of months. We added a summary statement under the major headings to kind of just give a general summary without even looking at the numbers, kind of what the performance is in that category. And then we removed the month comparison for library visits and circulation. We're doing comparing this month, this year to this month last year. But what we find is that there's so many like recurring things that happen on different, that might straddle 1 month and happen at a different time of year, that those numbers are not always truly representative of what's happening. And so the real indicator that I think makes a lot more sense is that year to date, which we've always provided you the year to date. But I think it's more important to kind of focus on the year to date change and see that from kind of a bigger picture.
You just.
Oh, sorry.
So, no, what he's taking out was month to month,
Right.
Yeah, and
took that column out.
And that's fine, but you had said something about library visits, so now you don't have, unless I'm missing here, you don't have library visits in here at all.
Yeah, he does.
First there.
Where?
Very first line at the top of the page. Main library,
Well,
Maybe
it's right
not
here.
that.
It's right here.
Yeah, there's a whole big thing,
library visit.
page 4.
We good.
Okay, sorry,
Greg, put your glasses on.
I still got jet lag.
The other thing that we added is the trend line on the bottom of the second page of the flip side, the program satisfaction. So this is something that you see kind of month to month and just kind of giving you a trend for 1 year as to how that's going. So just some tweaks that I wanted to bring to you guys for discussion. If there's other things that you'd like to see, when we created this, we wanted this to be a flexible model and wanted to make sure that we're providing the board with the statistics that you found interesting and relevant. And so I wanted to just bring it back for discussion.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, so for library cards, does that mean library cards issued?
Right, in that,
Okay. Could you?
or renewed.
Okay,
We can clarify that.
that would be awesome. And then, on page 2 or the back side. In the top, you talk about children's programs. And perhaps that's just because there were a lot of children's programs in October. I'm wondering, are you always going to reflect specifically children's, or was that just because that was a highlight of that?
Just a
particular
highlight for
month?
that.
So some month it might be, there were tons of classes that people took in the.
Adult
Yeah,
attendance
whatever.
is very
Okay.
high because
Yeah.
of this.
And then just another thing that might not be nice to have clarified, supplementary programs and activities.
Mhm.
It's.
Yep, I think we've changed that one a few times. That used to be
just not
passive
sure what that
programs.
means.
It's programs that people don't actively engage with necessarily. They're things that are like the takeaway kits and stuff like that, or they're self-paced programs, things like that.
What's a self-paced program?
Something like an activity that they would come into the hub and do this activity. this,
Okay, like some,
because in the hub, we have like every month, they have like kind of a different project, so they might come in and work on a project, stuff like that. For the mental space or.
Mhm.
You're gonna have to give a footnote to that, so. Because from 1 month to the next, I won't remember, and then the first person who's new, or there's some.
yeah, we'll have a new board and.
Supplementary programs, won't have any.
Yeah, so just to touch on Amy's point before I get to what I was gonna ask about, yeah, I think it might, especially since you're dealing with limited space, it might be easier to have like another page at the end that's just like the definitions or something. So just a thought. I was going to ask, just to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, you have the October 2022 dashboard, like, so this is like the old version, just so you can see
Yep,
the
just
difference.
for
Okay.
programs.
Okay, and then one other quick question, for the meeting rooms and the study rooms, is that just the difference is like how big the room is or how many people?
No, the meeting room is the Hendrickson room,
Oh, okay,
and then the study rooms are the conference.
okay, so really
can-
the only need is like would be the Hendrickson. room. Does the
Right,
Cardinal room
right.
count?
No, we don't own that,
Okay.
so.
So maybe you could just put Hendrickson room.
On program satisfaction, what's missing is the number of programs that you're measuring. You're giving us this trend data based upon 5 programs or 500.
5 points, so. 4
Yeah, I know,
programs.
but how many programs did you receive satisfaction evaluations for?
Got it.
And you could do that on the right side. Then that's just a line like that, an orange line that goes through that, so you have.
have a tr-
in the same,
Yeah.
chart.
yeah, so basically number of programs represented here. Right,
Yeah. And major, it's fine.
Because, you know, like the month that we have, One Book, One Village, there's a ton of, I would assume that's our biggest programming month. So that could be different than maybe your slowest month. I don't know what it is, but I would guess it wouldn't be nearly as many.
So I got a question here, and this might be a new thing, so. When I look at like what you're adding on a library card and the units and everything, which is great. But whenever it just says like a number, like, okay, October, library cards residents, 466, great,
content.
yes.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What is the change the month to date from year before?
Yeah, maybe we could do like an average per month or something. Yeah, okay, all right, we'll look at some context for those, for both of those, right? Remember you saying library cards?
Anywhere you've got like a month thing, to be perfectly honest. Trying to think before I say something stupid, like in the library visits and circulation.
Well, I mean, current month versus same month last year was what we were doing. And they've taken that column out because some of these programs overlap a month.
Right. Yeah,
What about year to date
I was gonna
versus
say-
year to date last year?
yeah, maybe we'll do the year to date for both, does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, just something kind of give context and, yeah, and if we're improving or dropping or something, right?
Is there, I'm looking, library visits obviously captures Maker Place. There's nothing you can check out of the Maker Place, right?
Yeah, there is.
There is, so
there is-
that's captured in circulation numbers.
Yes,
I guess I'm just trying. I think it might be helpful. I don't know what we need from Maker Place, but I think we need data to show how awesome it is, and I'm not sure what would help in that regard. I mean, it's great to know how many people go in there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
You
what's
could,
it-
you could do the same thing. You could have like an orange line go through library visits that is specific to Maker Place.
we do have Maker Place represented separately in the.
Or you could do the colored bar chart for everything.
Mhm.
Well, I think I'd be interested in knowing, like, I know that our kitchen, culinary programming is like super hot, but what about the rest of it? And like how many of these visits are just kitchen and how many visits are, all the other things, and I don't know if there's a way to collect that information or that we are already collecting that information, but, I think that would be like almost like a subcategory within Maker Place, kind of like we have.
Well, you're
children's
asking for a
and we have
Maker
this.
Place dashboard.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
What it is.
It's almost, it's a separate report.
yeah, exactly.
So just to be devil's advocate on that. If it's still a new program, Makerspace Place is still new, is that something where we just need a report, maybe a half-year report, just on, okay, this is where we're going and this is where we're growing? Or does it make sense at this point, do we have enough data to be able to put something on here to actually to put a dashboard type of information?
I think we could probably do a supplemental, because we talked about like when we originally did this dashboard, creating certain reports for, specific instances like the pandemic and stuff like that. Like if you guys wanted to watch something for a while, we could do a 6-month report of Makerspace. Here's kitchen performance, here's other programs, here's total visits, here's, laser cutter usage and stuff like that. If that's what you wanted to see, we could generate something like that and provide it to you for, 6 or 8 months and then drop it.
Does that satisfy with like what you were talking about?
Because I think it's more detailed than trying to include it in this.
Yeah,
This
I
is just
agree.
kind of like a general summary. I'd like to do something specific for Makerspace for you guys for whenever you feel it's leveled off or whatever. Does that make sense? You
Yes.
could bring something back next time.
I think so, because, we spent a lot of money on it. We are really excited about it. We think it's great. And people ask about it a lot. So, and I'm sure that after this much time, they've obviously fine-tuned things based on the usage that they see. And I'm sure you're looking at things like Friday, keeping it open based on requests or whatever. I don't know. I just think it's I want to be able to cheerlead on it more based on real facts instead of just anecdotes.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and we
think
did-
that's the question that I get most, like, how many, like, what all can I do there? And, like, just, and, when can I go and what kind of, and then not,
And we do have those statistics, because it's like how much of the laser printers are being used, like there's 100% on all day. So Chris has been tracking those and
Yeah.
the detail that they're looking for is we need something separate to go out. There's a lot of different data.
Yeah.
And if there's something that you guys want to see like reported on, we did have we did the first, annual report of the makerspace, and then we did the kitchen report Jennifer did a couple months ago. If there's something else specific that you'd like to actually have staff come in and talk about, we'd be happy to do that. So if there's something, but we'll definitely do that after.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would be interested in the Maker Place dashboard. On a periodic basis, whatever the period you think is most relevant. But also, you still can do some things here, like under library visits. You can have this, you basically have two colors. One is the Maker Place visits and then all other visits, which is the total visits, but you're giving us the total here, which you could easily separate into Maker Place versus other.
We do have Maker Place represented. as-
Right,
in library
And what I'm
visits.
saying is that 1666 in October, as you trend that out during the course of the year, could be the orange part of the of that space that's there.
Got it, to highlight that.
Right.
Okay.
And that's simple. It's not a dashboard, but it does give us a view on this dashboard that's, I think, meaningful to what.
Yeah, relative to the total.
And
No, you can go.
I was just gonna say, I'm again, just seeing all this and thinking about your executive report. I wonder, you do highlight it a lot, but I wonder if it's worth always having one paragraph or whatever. This is what's happening in the Maker, this is what happened in the Maker Place this month. Just, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like it's separate from the library, like the senior center and the bookmobile. But I do think it's worth it to know, like, this is our newest entity, and this is what we did in it this month, just since it's all still relatively new. So, and I, like I said, I think they're changing things up based on their learnings, and so they're so smart to do that, and let's, let people know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just to build off of what Andy was saying, I would love to see like, of the, 1,600 visits, like X amount were using the laser cutter, X amount were using the sewing machines.
Okay.
And I think that would be really awesome to see like early in 2023, because I think the holiday, I think there's. Like a big
Yeah,
spike.
totally,
So it
for
just be
sure,
fun
yeah.
to see that.
I would even be curious, like, with the sewing and things like that, like, how many are repeat, almost like, almost like your little coffee clutch, that like the same 4 people come every Tuesday to do their thing, and how many people are unique visits, right? So like, that's something I track in my own business, like how many sales are unique new customers and how many are return customers? Because that does matter, right? Like, and I know that if I've done a good job if they're a repeat customer. I always love new customers too, because I give an opportunity to make them a repeat customer, but it's the same thing with the Maker Place, like, this is a one-time, one hit wonder kind of thing for them, or is it something that they want to come back and explore something there?
Okay, so we just threw a lot at you.
Like I took a lot of good notes. I think. I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, is everybody good with everything we've been talking about? Okay, any questions on that? Okay.
This was really good feedback. I'll bring something back next cow for the makerspace sub dashboard. Are you good if we start with this new dashboard at the next board meeting with the changes that we discussed?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, forward. Alrighty, let's go on to, good one. Item 4, FY 2020 Illinois Public Library per capita application.
Yes, so as we discussed at our previous meeting, the per capita grant application is due, I believe, in January. So we have completed the application. It is here for you to review. We've read through the chapters, made some notes as to things that, where we comply with their recommendations. I also included a couple things in there to highlight, like under personnel, that the library conducted a market benchmark study in 2022. That was one of the things that they said in there to make sure that we do periodically. Also that under chapter 6, safety, that the library updated its disaster recovery plan in 2022. And chapter 4, that we are evaluating the public service hours offered at the Makerplace. So that is something that staff is actively working on. So I'm just trying to highlight some of the projects that we're doing that were directly relevant to the checklist items.
Any other questions on that? Councilman?
But not on the grant looks great. That was that. I just had a question on, like, I could have brought this up on safety, so I can wait until it's related to the policies. Let me wait.
Okay, well, let's just finish this up real quick. Anything more on that one? Okay, so let's go to other.
Oh,
Does anybody have any other?
Well, perfect. So, I was reading about the safety and, emergency plan and, that, do we administer Narcan or do we have people trained? Or
We
is
do
that?
not. On recommendation from the medical professionals and the police, we do not
Okay.
do it. It's for a number of reasons. They say just call,
Hmm.
the professionals and then
Okay.
do it. So. Good question.
Interesting. Any other?
Do we have a notary? I know we've asked that question before.
We do not have an
We
over
do
here.
not.
Something
We did, didn't we?
we used to years ago. Yeah. There were some issues with privacy, stuff like that, that staff are concerned about, so they backed out of it. It is something that we've talked about bringing back. So that may be something that we do again in the future.
Yeah, it feels to me like that's just like a library thing.
Right.
Whatever reason, okay. Okay, all right, anything else?
Just that I'm gonna be taking a couple days, well, a number of days off between now and the end of the year, just trying to use up vacation time for the end of the year. So that is it. So.
As long as you get the dashboard done. we're
Right,
fine.
And we have the staff party on the 10th, right? You coming up?
Yes.
What are we doing?
Well, not we're, it's a staff thing.
Okay,
Video games. They're gonna
Video
try to
games.
beat my husband's score on Frogger or whatever he wants. Joust. That's been fun. Every time I'm in, I actually, ask the people in circulation how it is. And actually, I do have another. So I came in, I think it was 2 days ago, just at like 2:45 and just kind of walked around. I just wanted to see like who's at the library 2:45. And I was looking at the public art in the afternoon. Took some pictures of the public art, which is awesome. And I was looking in the ESL room, is that what it's, yeah. And this lovely woman and her daughter, I think, brought in what was obviously a pretty flower. What are those things called that they bud out, like lilies, fancy flower? Yeah, and for the woman who runs the department, and they looked at, they presented as if they perhaps are from Afghanistan, and she obviously helped them, and it was so sweet. She was so touched, and I just kind of peeked in and I saw, and they were like so proud to give her this. So it made me very proud to be a part of this and know what all of you do to really help our community. And that's someone who's new to our community, and it was wonderful, and I know that it meant a lot to the staff members. So that's what's going on at 2:45 before like the kids get out of school and things get a little wild.
Okay, anything else? We have a motion for adjournment.
we adjourn.
Give me a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're done.